Well, hello, I didn't see you there. My name is Abe Hunter, and I'm the founder of the Lead Society. And tonight, we have a great roundtable, but I am just sitting in front of a Steinway, not a round table. But I would like to introduce to you my co-host this evening, the fabulous Raehann Bryce-Davis. Raehann, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? It's where are you calling from tonight?
I'm actually in the city. I just endured some travel while wrapped in all of the possible masks, but I made it back here to the city. My boyfriend is up here, and I had not seen him in way too long, so I'm glad to have been able to come back and connect with family and with him.
Well, that's great. Tonight on the show, we have another mezzo. We have two mezzos on the same program, which is pretty rare.
Mm.
We have the great Miss Stephanie
The way
Blythe.
the world should be.
And we also have the fantastic pianist Alan Smith. Before we bring them on the show, though, I had the opportunity earlier today to talk with the world's leading expert on Schubert, Dr. Susan Ewens, and we played a rousing game of Name That Schubert with a contestant, Catherine, who was calling from Portland, Oregon. So let's watch that. Let's see how she did. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome Susan Ewens, who is coming back. She is a glutton for punishment, and she's going to help us play another rousing game of Name That Schubert. Susan, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm holding up. It's sultry. I feel like I feel like a streetcar named Desire in Minneapolis. But so we have some. So can you tell us? Let's see. Actually, you know what? I'm going to bring in our contestant. We have Catherine playing with us today. Here we go. I'd like to
Hi again, Catherine.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
To another rousing installment of Name That Schubert, or as I affectionately call it, Make Us Look Like Idiots. So we have three clues. Actually, Susan, you tell us how this works.
Okay. First, I want to confess that I was always lousy at these sorts of games. So I have utmost sympathy for everybody engaging in Name That Schubert. And it's really part of an effort on Abe's and my part to convince everyone that they should go beyond the same 5 Schubert songs that everybody knows and explore a bit. There's such rich, fertile ground for exploring all kinds of different styles and types of song. So what happens in this game is that I give a clue, somebody plays or performs the beginning of the song, and then the contestant gets to take it away. Okay?
Okay.
You're going to get 8 bars, and in some cases, the first 8 bars may only be the piano accompaniment.
Right. How many of them are going to start with recits?
We were just talking about that off the air.
We were.
But I'll bring out the melody if there is a vocal line. Okay.
Okay.
So, Susan, what's our first clue?
Our first clue is as follows. This is a setting of a pseudo-Persian poem that obsessively laments lost love.
And here's the musical
example.
Hold on. Here's the music example.
Du liebst mich nicht.
Bravo!
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can do. Okay, we're 1 for 3 here. This is the best anyone's done.
Wow, I'm impressed. So are we ready for number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Heaven has no charms compared to the beloved in this entrancing dance song.
And here's our example.
Sorry, I have to think of the title.
You're singing the melody correctly, that's for sure.
Oh gosh.
Something about bliss.
It must be Seligkeit.
Yes,
Something like that. Okay.
Oh my God!
you're the best person who's played this game thus
Well, this is why
far. You're
I wanted to do
amazing.
name that Schubert. Yeah, Schubert's one of my favorite composers. So
Okay, well then this last one.
The last one is the easy one.
And I put it last because normally they're so hard. Okay, Susan, let's see if we can, maybe this will be the one.
A grandiose prayer to God in nature. In Mount Erde verkündet seine Macht.
Die Allmacht.
Yes!
Oh,
3 for 3, you're brilliant.
will you, in a couple sentences, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are at? And
Yeah, I'm based in Portland, Oregon right now. It's hard for me to sum up in a word or two. I've sort of been all over studying in the past 10 years. I spent the past year, well, not this past year I've been teaching in the area, but before that I was in Cologne in the Young Artist Program at the Opera House there. I did my master's at Juilliard. I did my bachelor's at St. Olaf College. I did a bunch of master courses in, I did Britten Peers, I did Franz Schubert, I did the Heidelberger Frühling, Lied Academy. So I've spent the past 10 years basically studying. I mean, I've done some professional stuff, but I feel like I'm just starting as a musician now. So that's where I am.
That's fantastic.
well, thank you for joining us, and we'll send you a Lead Society T-shirt for playing with us. And really, I'm not kidding. Susan, after we do a few more of these, and if we have any outstanding, we'll have like, Jeopardy style.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've just met our Ken Jennings here.
We definitely gotta have Catherine back. No
I'd love
doubt
to be
about
back.
it.
Absolutely.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. Any parting words, Susan?
Just that I'm thrilled to meet you.
I'm thrilled to meet you too. I used to read your books in undergrad, so
Writing books is like working really, really hard on something and then shipping it off to Mars. You just don't know whether anyone else is ever going to read it.
Well, I have a few of them on my shelf now that I've been meaning to get around to. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. We'll play again in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Susan.
Perfect.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Well, that was a rousing game of Name That Schubert, if there ever was one. Catherine got 3 out of 3.
Fantastic.
And you know what? She didn't even need the musical examples. She was able to get him out the clues that Susan was able to get. So bravo. We'll get that T-shirt out to you. Wonderful work. But without further ado, tonight, the great Ms. Blythe is joining us from undisclosed location. And we have Mr. Alan Smith joining us from sunny Pasadena. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And so, Ms. Blythe, what can you tell us? What's going on in your world? And
my undisclosed location.
Yes, it looks nice.
It's my home. I live about 25 miles shy of Scranton, Pennsylvania. So that's where I am right now. What's going on here? Well, not much. And
well, thank you.
Fine.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
And Mr. Smith, you're teaching. You're doing some summer courses, I understand. And are you all wrapping up? Do you get a little break? Do you get some rest before this fall term starts back up?
No, I don't get any kind of break, but I'm not really looking for one. I'm teaching currently at Tanglewood Music Center. We had a wonderful month-long run with Songfest, which was a really, really wonderful experience. And then I zoomed right into the fall restart at USC, which is kind of my normal pattern. Often when I leave Tanglewood, I fly back the next day to USC and start there the next day. So the pattern's very much the same for me.
Actually, I do have some things going on here, but not here in sunny Greentown. I'm also involved with Tanglewood this summer, and I am taking part. I'm teaching as part of the Bard Summer Institute, and we'll be working next week with undergraduate students, with my colleagues Lucy Fitzgibbon and Kaya Uwama. So that's what my next couple of weeks are going to be about, and then we're obviously preparing for the fall at Bard College.
Oh, we were going to be in the same city if the world had carried on as normal.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to be in Summerscape in the show. Oh. Alas. Well, here we are meeting in spite of it all.
But what I'm quite certain that it will happen, and that eventually it will happen, and then we'll see each other. It'll be great.
There we go.
Now, Stephanie and Alan, how do you know each other? Do you go back a long way, collaborating in concert and recital?
We do. I first heard Stephanie at her Tanglewood Music Center audition at Weill Hall in New York. And she was Stephanie Blythe then. The voice was as magnificent then as it is now. And I wrote on my yellow notepad, "This is it," all in capital letters, followed by I don't know how many exclamation points, because it was just so clear. And then she came to Tanglewood that first summer and then the next summer, and we bonded in so many ways, musically, personally. And she's an example in my life of going from somebody who ostensibly was a student, she was a student, to my being a faculty member. And we have just become the closest of friends in the meantime. Stephanie, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I remember the very first time we ever saw each other at Tanglewood. I had to return a score, and I saw you across the field. I remember you're walking towards me. I thought, that's Dr. Smith. So I walked up to you and I said, "Are you Dr. Smith?" And you said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Here's a score." But we worked nonstop that summer. It was really amazing. It was love at first sight. It was music at first sight. And Alan has, over the course of our relationship, has written some of the most beautiful music that I've ever sung for me, which it's been extraordinary. For my 30th birthday, I received in the mail 2 large white notebooks with 2 complete hand manuscript of a piece called Ellis Island Vignettes, which Alan had written for me for my 30th birthday. And that was the beginning of a great collaboration between the two of us.
We premiered them in Los Angeles at USC the very next year.
We did. And I remember reading through them at Tanglewood in the little red house.
That's right.
Remember back when you were still in the little red house?
That's right. I missed that little red cabin.
The little red house. Don't we all have fond memories of summer housing at various
yes.
at various summer events? The Little Red House was wonderful. It was a wonderful little cabin, and you had that adorable upright there. And we sat there at night and we read through the whole piece, and it was just magical. And that actually was also the first time that I had ever sung any Tin Pan Alley songs, because we were trying to figure out what else we would program on this recital. And Alan's idea was that we would program songs that these folks would have heard when they came through Ellis Island in the 1920s. And so we sang he chose these magnificent Tin Pan Alley songs. And it was the first time I ever sang any early Irving Berlin, which was amazing. And it completely changed my life. Tin Pan Alley is a tent pole in my musical existence, in my musical, tent.
Universe.
Earth.
Alan, how was it that you fell in love with the works of Tin Pan Alley? Why did those speak to you?
Well, they did speak to me, and I have to say, I had to study to know more of them, to know more about them, and I bought many volumes to read about them. I bought many volumes that have the actual music in them, and so I looked through many of them, and I think I sent Stephanie some, and she chose ones that she liked, and so that was a real important part of my musical journey as well. One of the pieces we did on that recital was "If You Don't Like My Peaches, You Better Stop Shaking My Tree," and I have to say that I still have students that were at that recital, however long ago it was, and they still, when they email me or phone me, they'll say, they'll sing "If You Don't Want My Peaches," because it just made an indelible impression on them.
And I have had so many students sing that song since. It's so wonderful. And it's not a well-known Berlin tune at all. It was never published, or it was published posthumously. And so and I think one of the songs that I loved the most was, Alan incorporated Beautiful Dreamer into the song cycle. And it was such an amazing and perfect song to talk about this journey, this dream journey that these immigrants were going on. And Alan, would you talk a little bit about where you got the text from?
For the Ellis Island vignettes were from my friend Paul Segrist, who was a docent at Ellis Island at the time. And I had made a trip to Ellis Island for the first and only time with my friend Todd and talked to Paul Segrist. And Paul had made audio recordings of these immigrants who passed through Ellis Island. And so Paul just at a moment of inspiration sent me typewritten transcripts of these interviews. And I thought, when I received it, I've said this to Paul, I thought, well, isn't that nice? The envelope was, about a half inch thick. And I thought, well, isn't that nice that he did that? I wonder why he did that. I'll never, ever use these, but that's really nice that he did that, and such a thoughtful thing. So I stuck them into my my drawer, and Stephanie's birthday was coming up, and these texts, these voices started coming out of this drawer and saying, here's some very rich stuff here. So I went through them, and if Paul had not sent them to me, if they had not been readily available to me, I would not have thought to look there. But it gave my setting of the music, gives these immigrants, every time these songs are performed, gives them another chance to be heard. And I will say just one other thing that touches me very much is that when I wrote those pieces, some of those immigrants were still living. So the songs were a kind of tribute. Now, none of them is living anymore. So they still have voices whenever Stephanie sings them, whenever other people sing them. They also get little staged versions sometimes. There was one at University of North Texas as part of Collab Fest last October. I know that Kathleen Rowland Silverstein has done a staged version of them with multiple people at Syracuse. So they strike a chord in that whether or not we ourselves immigrated, we are all related to people who did. And the idea of whether we're talking about leaving a country and going to another as an immigrant, we all have home leaving and goal arrival, like maybe when we go to college or something like that. So it's a kind of universal thing that happens. But I can thank Paul Segrist for that initial gift. Thank you, Paul.
That's so interesting. That's so sorry, Ms. Blythe.
No,
That's actually a beautiful correlation with opera, taking something that's, you know, old and making it relevant for us today. I mean, you mentioned Beautiful Dreamer. As I understand, Stephen Foster wrote a lot of minstrel songs, which today, you know, are realized to be completely inappropriate. But to use it in the storytelling of something that tells a different story is beautiful. I mean, in opera, we perform Wagner, who we know, you know, was a very staunch racist and sexist and everything. But today it has launched so many careers of Black singers. And so, you know, taking something old and making it relevant and inclusive is very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, we're lucky to have a song like Beautiful Dreamer. I was talking about this today in an interview, actually, because there are, you know, I've done a lot of research in Tin Pan Alley, and there's a lot of, you know, Irving Berlin is a very, very interesting composer, as well as Stephen Foster. Irving Berlin has a gigantic repertory. I mean, he wrote more songs during that time period than just about anybody else. Most of the songs from his beginning of his career, we can't perform. We should perform. And I know a lot of people who love to sing Alexander's Ragtime Band. It's a very catchy tune. It's as racist as hell. You can't sing. You can't sing any of the verses. You can sing one verse of all of them. And so there's a lot of very interesting research to be done. And I think you're right. I think a lot of this, there's the use of the Beautiful Dreamer in this particular context it's used to describe the end of someone's journey when they reach the landing point. So what she is saying at that moment is, that was a beautiful day. I woke up at night. I woke up in the night towards morning, and I thought, what is wrong? And all the time, because the ship has finally stopped. And so she thinks, is there something wrong? And while all of these thought processes are going on, you hear Beautiful Dreamer playing in the background. And it creates this beautiful sensation of a dream world that is realized.
After she wakes up, she goes on deck, and what she sees is the Statue of Liberty. And so one of the things in the back of my mind was that the Statue of Liberty may be actually singing this to this young lady, and that she's imagining that she's waking up to this message from the statue.
It's beautiful. It's really, it's wonderful. And the songs have a very universal feeling about them. I'm sorry, but now I have to throw the toy. It has to happen. Every time I do it, and in any kind of interview, I get to throw the toy. If I don't throw the toy, you'll all hear about it.
Your husband doesn't last very.
Yeah, my husband
has a narrow patience.
Yeah, exactly. But subsequently, Alan was commissioned by the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center to write a song cycle for myself and Warren Jones, and wrote a breathtaking journey. Another vignettes, Covered Wagon Woman, telling this insane journey of this woman named Margaret Frank, who traveled across the country in a covered wagon with her husband. And Alan loves to set prose. Is very, very, very good at setting prose. And so this piece is just, it's a monster. I tell you what, you got to have some cojones to sing this, but it is worth every moment.
I will mention that I wrote one more set called Vignettes, and it's on the papers of a World War II bride, and it was a personal friend of mine named Evelyn English, and her husband, who she married just before World War II. He went overseas and sadly was killed just at the end of World War II. But he had written her really, really exquisite love letters. And I was sitting next to her. She was in her 90s. I was sitting next to her at the symphony one night, and she said, Alan, I have all these love letters from my husband, George, and I don't know what to do with them. And I thought a little bell went off in my head, like, a giant bell at Notre Dame. And I said, well, Evelyn, I have an idea. And so I set them to music. And at that time, there was an 80th birthday celebration for Phyllis Curtin at Tanglewood. And so I wrote these Ellis Island songs for that event. And I didn't know what soprano was going to sing them. They're soprano. So I wrote them for my friend and colleague, Elizabeth Hines. And she gave the West Coast premiere at USC in the year after they were written. And so they were for her voice and for her spirit, but they tell the story of these really beautiful letters. And I included the telegram. I set to music the telegram that Evelyn received, letting her know that George had died. And it's a really shattering thing to think of receiving this telegram to let you know that your husband had just died. But I was Evelyn let me into her world, and it's very, very personal. And so I'm really grateful to her. She passed away a number of years ago, and so she leaves that legacy through music. Her husband's letters through music. Every time they're performed, her husband has another chance to be heard. And that's very humbling as a composer to be a kind of vessel for that. And it's also a great privilege and a great joy.
And Alan, isn't it interesting that an old form like art song is still relevant in the 21st century, but bringing a past event as recent as World War II and making it relevant? I mean, these are timeless stories told through a centuries-old art form, and here we are talking about it now and reliving it as though it was yesterday. It's very powerful.
Song has a quality to it which is one size fits all. You can say anything in an art song and express the funniest, the most serious, the most touching kinds of things, and the song is just the perfect vehicle for that. I know that there has been a lot of worry in quarantine times that song is in danger, and I understand what people mean when they say that. I personally don't feel the same way, because it is such a one size fits all. It's so malleable to so many different types of messages. I was thinking it's like a grain of wheat. That grain of wheat may look really insignificant. Maybe that's an art song. When you combine it with other grains of wheat, you'll get loaves of bread and beverages and cookies and all kinds of wonderful things. And so it's a kind of building block that is irreducible, and I believe that is always will have a need for it.
And I'm curious to know what Stephanie and Raehann think about that too, because it's not only a building block of one's vocal technique, but I think regardless of where you're at in your development as a singer, or even if you don't consider yourself a trained singer, you can still sing songs and get great satisfaction and still satisfy an audience, even if it's just your dog. I sing to her all the time. It drives her crazy.
I think one of the things that I like most about song, and what I found to be true for myself, and what I see quite frequently in the young artists that I work with, you develop, as a singer, you develop two voices. You develop the technical voice, your actual singing voice, but then you develop this voice. So what's amazing about song is that it enables a singer to to kind of glom on to their voice, their specific voice. And I have to say that my relationship with Alan is one of the biggest things that helped me to do that. My relationship with Alan and with Warren Jones specifically, because my work with them helped me to find my voice, to find what was important for me to say, and gave me the ability to do that. And it wasn't until actually quite late in my career that I discovered it. It wasn't until 10 years ago that I realized, oh, I'm exercising my voice. I'm not just putting something together here that's pleasing, but it's actually saying something that I need to say right now. And that was when my mother passed away. I needed to find a way to deal with my mother's death, to say something about what she meant to me and how she died and how she lived her life and our relationship. And it was a recital that helped me to do that. And I will never forget, I have a colleague who came to see that recital, who was not a recitalist himself, but, was a very successful opera singer. And he said, I never realized that you could use a recital to say something. Now, those of us who are knee deep in recital are, wow. But what we need to recognize the fact that that's not that way. Not everybody understands that. That's something that you sort of grow into. It's a mistake for us to think that everyone thinks the way we think. And that everybody comes to ideas in the same way and at the same time that we do. And I was very grateful that that concert helped him to see that. But like I said, even the recitals that I had done up until that time, I loved them. And they were successful and wonderful. And they said something musically that was very important to me. And individual pieces within those recitals resonated with me very much. But it was not like I was using my voice for this and this, for my heart and my head.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. I think art song has always been very, very meaningful to me. I think one of my favorite things about it is that you and the pianist are responsible for what it is that you want to say. There's no director in the room that you have to do their staging and follow their concept. There's no conductor that you have to do their tempi. It's just you deciding what this character, and I say character because usually the character is just yourself, with, to me, is so much more exciting and so much more personal because, I love doing opera and doing these big dramatic things. But if the reason that we get into music is to express something and to connect with people, then how is there any closer connection than through song when we are just bearing our souls and there is no artifice? There is only truth, ideally, when it's the golden moments,
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, how much time do we want to spend with Azu Chaina or I don't know, name that opera character? But Raehann was slated to play Azu Chaina at the LA Opera in September, and it's interesting that you bring that up. You meet these characters for depending on their length of time on stage, but over the course of an art song recital, you can really, as Susan Ewens loves to say, there's as much real estate in a or depth of emotion and in a 60-second art song than there is in a 3-hour opera in some instances.
Well, and also in an opera, we are able to we're able to create backstories for ourselves. We're able to work on the character and we can make it as deep as we desire. Honestly, you can do very superficial readings of any role, and unfortunately, some people have. But most of the folks I know, and I'm sure you're the same way, you really delve into these characters. However, most of it is prescribed. It's in the libretto, and a lot of this, and when it comes to song, it's not. There's certain things, there's certain fixed ideas in a song, certainly, but there's so much more room for interpretation, even if you're just at the level of what you're choosing to sing. And that really is something I would be very interested. It would be, let me put this idea out there for all you singers. Wouldn't it be interesting to program a recital as Azucena? What kind of songs would Azucena sing? What kind of songs would Mimi sing if she was going to sing some songs? Or, I would love to know what songs Aida wanted to sing. Would be really amazing, because we know a lot about these characters.
What about Yeji Baba? We didn't hear much from her.
No. I bet she, you know what? I bet you she sings bawdy songs. It's gotta be bawdy, with lots of language, lots of swearing. But
yes.
Wouldn't it be interesting to know what kind of lead Fricka would sing or Wotan would sing? I frequently will, when I'm listening to popular song of the 40s, the 50s, even sometimes the 60s, I will listen to the song and hear an opera character singing it. This sounds like, every time I hear, I have been a rover, I have walked alone. That song, still in all I'm happy. Something I can't remember. For what it is you see once in a while along the way, love's been good to me. That's Wotan's song. Every single time I hear that song, I think Wotan. Every time I hear The Man That Got Away, I think Fricka. So what kind of lead recitals would an opera character sing? I think that would make a very interesting recital.
And not only that,
take it away, singer world.
Go
for it.
Do it. And I not only that, Stephanie, I think would really help develop that character for somebody if they were learning that role. My God.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You guys do it.
Do it. I'm putting it out there.
Yep. This is free advice, everyone. By the way,
wouldn't it be a great festival?
It would be fabulous. Because if nobody else does it, I'm doing it. Okay. You guys have 24 hours. You
just have to bring me in.
I'll get you here. Now, do you think Yeji Baba liked capers on her lox and bagels? Do you think she was a caper girl?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so too.
Absolutely. I can't imagine it any other way.
Stephanie and Raehann, I would be very interested to hear you talk about, I remember being an undergraduate and accompanying in tons of voice studios, which is where I learned so much repertoire and learned so much about the voice. And I remember hearing voice teachers and voice students at that time talk about, this is the way I sing when I sing art song, this is the way I sing when I sing opera. And I remember at the time, I'll just throw my own oar into that water. I remember at the time thinking, I don't know if I believe that that's a true thing, that one would sing one way when they sing art song and another way when they sing opera. And just before you two artists answer, I will say that I have quoted Stephanie so many times to students because Stephanie is so devoted to opera and so devoted to songs. And I have heard her say many times she could not be the wonderful opera singer she is if she did not sing songs. And she could not sing songs as wonderfully as she does if she did not sing opera. Can the two of you talk about, is there a difference the way you sing songs in opera?
And before we go any further, Alan, you're happy to take over my job. You can just, we can call this the Alan Smith Show, Alan Smith Hour. But
I would not do nearly as wonderful a job.
Okay, go ahead and answer.
What do you think?
Well, I certainly don't think there are two voices. I think if there is a difference, the difference would come from wanting to say something different. The different colors would be perhaps if the character is in a more intimate moment in a room by herself, then the colors might be lighter and they might be, not as, but that's not fair because we have a lot of opera characters that are in a room by themselves, but you still need to sing with all of the resonance straight to the back of the room. But still, I wouldn't, there's definitely not two voices. It's hard sometimes for young singers because singing softly is not a skill we learn, especially for young dramatics. Very often as freshmen is just not going to be able to sing those dynamics right now. So you sing with the voice you have, you sing with the technique that you have in the moment, and you tell the story that you can with the tools that you have. I would say there's so much song rep out there. If you want to sing loud things, they're loud songs. If singing with the soft dynamics is not your forte, you don't have to do it immediately. But I am a believer.
Did you just make a pun?
Did I? Which one did I do? What did I do?
Not your forte?
Not my. Well played. Yeah, no, I would say they're definitely not different voices. There are only different colors that the same voice would use.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It has to do with style, It's the same voice, it's the same technique, it's just you just look at different styles. And I think also there's something I do really think that a lot of the technique that I learned in terms of volume, I learned through singing song. Because there's just so many wonderful. I don't know why it is why it is when you're first starting out that opera tends to be about sound and art song tends to be about words. And it shouldn't be that way. They should both be about sound and words all the time. But that's a difficult bridge to cross. And I do think that you can find success. I think it's important for young singers, especially, that they find success with frequency. And with song, you can do that. You can learn a song and really be able to hone the different kinds of different uses of technique in that song in a more easy way than an entire role, for instance. And I think it's important for young singers to have success with frequency so that they start to learn the idea of a continual idea of success, a continual idea of and connection to technique.
Now, Stephanie, do you think that also, this is what my theory is, that, the dynamics are a relative term, that color, you can achieve a difference in dynamic with color. That just because, a piano is not always going to be necessarily that you have to be, get your ear or horn out to hear it, like it all depends.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think, I've frequently said that I don't believe in dynamics.
Yeah.
That I believe in colors. I believe in intensity.
Absolutely. I think that's.
And then people who know my voice go, "What a load of horseshit." Of course you believe in dynamics. But I do, it's ridiculous for me to say I don't believe in dynamics. They don't exist. But it really is. Dynamics is more about levels of color, levels of texture, levels of intensity.
Exactly.
And intention.
Exactly.
What you are intending. I wanted to interject. One of my favorite performing memories of Stephanie was I believe it was at Alice Tully with Warren, and they performed Amarilli Mia Bella, and it was so soft for 3 or 4 minutes. It was incredibly striking. And, I have been to the Met to hear Aida with Stephanie in the triumphal scene, all the brass, all the elephants, all the dancers, all the chorus, everything. And hers is the voice that I could hear through all of those things. And so she makes a mighty racket, and it's a glorious racket. But it's so fabulous to know and to have in my performance memory of her this incredible ability to sing intensely and importantly in an extremely soft dynamic.
Well, and Alan, I love that you brought up Amarilli, because those Italian songs, and Stephanie, I just love watching your ukulele video of you playing that, because those songs, there's so much to glean from those, and it's so refreshing when you hear a truly developed artist sing them. Because people think, once I'm done with my undergraduate degree, thank God I have to never look at those again.
Oh, they're so wonderful. They're so beautiful. And the thing is, one of the things I'm most ashamed of is that I don't play piano. So I never played an accompanying instrument. I played flute and baritone saxophone, both of which are very difficult to sing. And so when I started to play ukulele, and I started playing Tin Pan Alley songs, all of my favorite stuff. Then I realized, well, these early songs are actually quite easy to play on the ukulele, and it does sound remarkably like a lute. And so I've actually started. I've done Caro Mio Ben, Amarilli, and I've just finished doing getting a ukulele chart for Vittoria Mio Core, which will be the next one I put on. And I've also just did an arrangement of Di Forella for ukulele as well.
We'll be sure to link those on the thing.
Yes.
Delightful.
You don't want to hear my piano, which has been a wonderful mouse house for the last 10 years. But my ukuleles are, they make me very happy.
I just want to thank you for how much you've done for opera. In the opera world, obviously, you are legend. You are all of the things. But the way that you popped into the current culture with your drag life and had a whole new introduced a whole new generation of people to an incredible opera singer, that is just so beautiful. And the work that all of us need to be doing to further opera.
Oh, yeah.
You took that gloriously trained voice and introduced them to these unearthly sounds that are possible. And I just want to thank you for that. That's amazing.
I'm so glad that you say that. It makes me very happy. And the thing is that my I had a long chat with somebody about Blithely Ortonio today, and I always talk about him like he's somebody else, because he is somebody else for me. He's very much me, but he's also another persona. And one of the things I love most about it is that he's a dream character for me to be able to sing repertoire that I've always dreamed of singing, like Cavaradossi and, Canio and things, or, you know what I mean? It's nice to be able to do that. But there's something about the crossing over from opera into rock and roll that is very satisfying and works very well. And I have the most amazing music director who's made these insanely brilliant arrangements.
You want to give a shout out?
A shout out to Dan Kazemi, John Jarbo, my director, my partner in crime, Martha Graham Cracker, and the amazing Machine Dazzle, our phenomenal designer. It's been it's a really wonderful thing. And what's great about it is that it utilizes all areas of my performing life. It's a recitalist, it's an opera singer, it's a cabaret artist, and it's a rock and roll artist. And he gets to, and I get to wear a beard and fabulous outfits. So, and sing with a rock and roll band, a genius rock and roll band. So it's incredibly satisfying. But first and foremost, it's musically satisfying. And one of the things that John Jarboe, who is, one of my greatest mentors and inspirations, who runs the Bearded Ladies Cabaret in Philadelphia, John instilled in me this need to really state my values, to know what my values are in performance. Every time the dog runs for the toy, she hits my ukulele. Okay, it's a staple.
It's a treasured instrument, I see.
It's a treasured instrument. It's only one of. I have 3 ukuleles out right now, so it's only one of them. But John, one of the first things that we talk about in terms of values of performance is that the first thing you do is you honor the art form. You have to honor the art form. You have to do it for real. You have to honor your ancestors and honor the art form. And in this particular art form, there are a lot of different ancestors. But I learned about how to do that through song. That's the first place I ever learned about that, because especially singing funny songs, for instance, singing anything that has any kind of humor, if you do it in an honorable way, if you don't try to make it funny, if you don't try to sell it, it's really funny. The minute you try to sell it, it's boring. And you know what I mean? And Alan taught me a lot about that. So a lot of this happens, the greatest. I've never ever made a secret of the fact that some of the most amazing and probably the most amazing mentors that I've had have been pianists. And who have, including my great music director in the drag, Dan Kazemi.
Now,
go ahead.
How does that, I mean, can we just get a round of applause, folks? Like a virtual round of applause, anyone? Is anyone listening? Stephanie, so you're a rock star. Now, how does this translate to your advocacy for the cause? I mean, I see you were outspoken with regard to as were many artists with the Richard Tucker imbroglio. I mean, are we more empowered than ever to act and say what is on our minds now than ever?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because we're not working. Because we're not working. And the fact is, we can't. It's not like we're not working because nobody wants us. We're not working because we can't work right now. And so the people don't speak out because of fear. And it's a real fear. It's a real fear. And it's not, and everything that we need to speak out about is not, there's levels of things that we need to speak out about. There's levels of things. There are the really big things that are finally being spoken about, but there are lots of things in all of our industries, whether it be all parts of our performing industry, that have to be looked at. And I think the fact that all of us, and I'm going to borrow a phrase that I first heard Alan say, we've all pulled off of the superhighway of our careers to have a moment to reflect. And not only do we have this time, which is, not voluntary. When we have this time to ourselves, we have time to really sit and think. When we're in the middle of the career, it's very hard to focus on things other than that job at the time. Most people don't realize, when we don't leave the job behind. You go and you rehearse for 6 hours, but the several hours before you go into rehearsal, you're warming up, you're working on memorization, you're memorizing staging, you're memorizing, all the things you did in the previous week's rehearsal.
You're thinking about what the character would have for breakfast.
Exactly. Then you're going to rehearsal, and afterwards, I mean, you know what it's like. Do you leave a performance and go, oh, well, that was good, I won't think about that anymore? No, it never leaves us. And so having this time now, it's an important time to cogitate and to find out what's really important. And I think because, I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, and Alan and I have talked at great length about this. COVID has given birth to a lot of very interesting things other than a virus.
Indeed.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what you're saying is absolutely true. And a lot of people have said that that's why this recent Black Lives Matter movement has been so as big as it has, is because we can't look away from it. I mean, as a Black singer, we still, whether the career is in full blast or not, it is part of the daily experience. And it is still a constant looking over your back and preventing things, and an all-consuming task of dealing with, racism in the world at large and also in opera. And so, but it's so powerful. And I think during this time, I've really found out who my friends are. I grew up in a small town in Texas, and I've been having a lot of, really difficult conversations with a lot of old friends. And some of them have just really gone out and read and tried to educate themselves and uplifted their thought processes. And, some have kind of just said that I'm making it all up, And so it's just an interesting time. And it's beautiful to see giants like you, speaking out against what is wrong. And I'm very excited for opera that so many people are doing this. And I just think it's the only way forward. The world is moving forward. And if we insist on staying in the past, we make ourselves irrelevant.
I agree. I think we need to persevere and innovate. And Alan, what are we doing as pianists to do that? Are there any innovations that you've seen or things to keep us relevant? Everyone is recording things now, and soon there'll be robots replacing us.
Never.
Soon there'll be robots replacing us. Soon there'll be robots replacing us. Soon there'll be robots replacing us.
Click. One of the things is that, you can make music with music -1 and get a certain way down the street. It would probably be like having a partner who is a robot. They're not as good a hugger, quite frankly, probably.
Well, I don't know.
In my experience, let's put it that way. But to make music live with another person is irreplaceable. And that will never go out of style. I think that music -1 ideas are a really wonderful tool, can be incredibly helpful. Another thing that I like to talk about, or that I don't hear talked about a lot by other people, is the vibration that we feel in our body when we are in the same room with someone singing, playing the piano, listening into an orchestra. When you're listening to a Mahler symphony, your whole seat is vibrating that you're sitting in, the floor that your feet are resting on is vibrating. And so we have this kind of aural vibration that happens to us physically. I love that. I love to be in the same room, and I miss that on Zoom when I teach that on Zoom. But we also have this other vibration that's going on, which is a kind of human-to-human resonance. And that's certainly possible over Zoom, but there are layers, in my experience, in the way with that. And so I think it's like a picture of delicious Mexican food is never going to be as satisfying as the actual Mexican food.
Well, I mean, that's how I just look at it and enjoy.
I don't believe you for a second.
You're right. I'm making reservations as I speak. I have to leave. Alan Smith, Stephanie Blythe, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing some words of wisdom with us. And is there anything you'd like to say to my guest, co-host, to each other, to the world, as I play a little outro music and you can say hello to a loved one. We can have a seance. We can do whatever you want.
Oh, that's very sweet. You know what? All I'd like to say is I'm just so proud of the arts community. I'm so proud of the work that everyone is doing. I'm so proud of all of the students. I'd like to give a big shout out to my students at Bard and to my colleagues at Bard who have worked so hard during a very, very difficult time. And I can't even tell you how much I look forward to being in the same room with them again. But until that time, I'm just completely amazed at some of the wonderful things. And I will say one thing that has really moved me during this time is we are giving people an opportunity. The online is giving singers an opportunity to have a voice in a way that they have not been able to have. And that is a great blessing. And students are able to listen to people that they admire and work with in a whole new way. And they're getting a glimpse into this world that they might not have gotten otherwise. And it's leveled that playing field.
Absolutely.
So that you don't just have kids in particular young artist programs who are able to have a master class with XYZ. There are people who are doing wonderful work online, and it's available to everyone. And that's going to be the name of the game. Access.
Yes, and everyone
and access. That's my two new favorite words.
And Stephanie, wholeheartedly, and we have a whole archive of Lee Society podcasts. Go back. My dear friend Karen Slack has amazing guests on her show.
Incredible.
And these people are giving you advice that you would need to, that they would never share, I think, under normal circumstances, unless you were friends with them. You know, this is like real world advice, and it's just amazing. So it's out there for everyone to enjoy. So yes, we have to remember that. And if there's a silver lining out of COVID, it's that people are bearing their souls, even if they're robots. Alan?
I would give a tremendous shout out to my colleagues and my students at USC who have been magnificent through this process. It's grueling and it can be really exhausting, and they have been magnificent. Always I have learned from my students, always I have learned from my colleagues, and this time they are revealing themselves to be truly magnificent. And I want to give a shout out. Stephanie had mentioned me as an influence on her, and I had just written my teacher at Baylor University, Jane Abbott Kirk, who retired from there after only 45 years of teaching, that she was tremendously influential in my life. And so what I would say in honoring Jane by mentioning her is that it is those relationships one-on-one. I never met Raehann before, and I'm so delighted, and I can't wait to see you again and wait to hear you sing. But it's those one-on-one connections that make our art and life really just so special.
And I'm so sorry to jump in one more second, because we didn't say anything about it at all. But Alan and I we have a thing called Fall Island Vocal Arts Seminar, which was not able to meet this year. After 8 years, after 8 successful seasons, we could not, as everyone else, meet this year. But a big shout out to all of our friends at Fall Island Vocal Arts Seminar, to the amazing singers and pianists that we were not able to work with this summer. How much we love you all. And, Fall Island forever. We'll be back.
Where is Fall Island for those of us that don't know?
Fall Island Vocal Arts Seminar is held at Potsdam State University the last week of May. And so we're not able to, it's Fall Island focuses on current American song.
Okay, so next year.
Living composers. Yeah, next
Great.
year. Next year we can have a whole schmagegi about it.
And you know what? I think this may be the year of American Art Song, I think, if there ever was one. So, it'll live on. It will live on, right?
Yep.
I believe it will.
Ms. Bryce-Davis, hello.
Oh, this was so much fun.
This is a true Minnesota goodbye, everyone. This has been like 10 minutes. So
that's a performer goodbye.
But this is great.
Morning.
What do you want to say, Ms. Bryce-Davis, to everyone? And I'm so excited to be working with you when you come to town in September. But have a few minutes.
Well, I would just say that I am excited for all of the innovative things that are coming out of this dreadful experience, but that are leveling the playing field, as Ms. Blythe so beautifully said, and letting us see, even if it's the Met Gala, you see everyone in their living rooms, you see them, you hear professional singers with their microphones blasting out, you see them all in their Zoom cameras, like, how does this work? We're all having the same struggle. And it is only innovation that is going to get us through all of this, And I think it's a beautiful opportunity to have all of our beautiful art that we're always creating accessible for all. It's not inside the closed walls of an opera house. It's here. It's available to everybody. So I'm trying to challenge myself and do things I've never done before. And I am so excited when I see wonderful colleagues doing the same. And I'm excited for opera and for art song and for the glorious future that is relevant and innovative that will be ours.
Well, I'm gonna build, as soon as I get off this call, I'm building a robot. What I'm gonna do. You've inspired me to lead music. I'm going into robotics. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Abe.
Thank you, Raehann.
Hey, this was so much fun. Thanks, guys. If people want to learn more about you, where can they go? Miss Stephanie Blythe.com. Stephanie, is your number still 666?
StephanieBlytheMezzo.com, but you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and all those fun places. I'll be there with my ukulele.
You can look me up on the USC website. I'll be there.
Okay.
That's right. I just go out of my door and I go, "Hey, Al!" That's what I do. Out.
I love it.
All the way in Pasadena.
And Raehann,
and mine is Raehann.com, www.raehann.com, or on Instagram, RayRayBB.
All right. So, all right, play us out, Stephanie.
Oh. Ready! The Princess Papuli has plenty papaya. She loves to give it away. But all of her neighbors, they say, "Oh, Mia, oh, Maya, you really should try a little piece of the Princess Papuli's papaya." Salsa, 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 say. There you go. That's it.
Second verse, same as the first.